We are going to be having a very juicy conversation today with Mare Simone. I'm so excited for this interview. I'm thrilled because this is something I've been exploring myself. So Mare is a tantric sex coach and an advanced certified Tantra educator. She's an avid explorer of women's mysteries. She specializes in assisting women and men to heal and awaken their deepest, delicious pleasures and offers couples supportive guidance into the realms of healing and awakening massive orgasms and love together. Thanks for doing that work in the world, beauty. So stoked. We're going to have a deep dive today. We're going into the deepest levels of orgasms, the portals of pleasure, and I think we're going to be talking about cervical orgasms. So I'm excited. Welcome, Mare.
Yeah, welcome, Mare. And I just want to give an extra plug to the great Mare Simone. Mare has been a mentor and a personal coach to me for years and years. I owe so much to my career, having been facilitated by Mare and helping me establish my gifts. Mare is like really a legend in the Tantra industry. So thank you so much for saying yes to being a part of this, Mare Z.
Yay. Thank you so much. I'm just so jazzed from this intro and all the warm energy I'm feeling already bubbling up.
Yay. So, Mare, I'm curious, what would you say your specialty is?
I was just tuning into that because it evolves all the time. It's what's most new and alive for me because that's the avenue that I feel is continually calling me deeper and deeper inside, which is why the talk today is like the deepest part of our inside sacred temple. I love helping women find themselves and find their deepest orgasms. Because I had a lot of challenge with that myself and had to learn the hard way and sometimes the fun and light way, but it took a lot of years.
Could you say a little bit about your journey? Because I think a lot of people look at the sex industry, the sexuality, the sacred sex industry and go, it must be so easy for all of them. We do the work because we actually need the work. And so I'm wondering if you could share like a before and after. Who were you when you got the call to move in this direction of your own enlightenment and your own healing? And now who are you now?
Who was I when I got the call? A stumbling, struggling woman who had a yearning and a sense that there was something like a treasure of pleasure inside. And I always felt like I was this mermaid guarding my treasure because I was wounded. I had been raped a couple of times and times that I just was not expecting it. And it affected my morale more than anything because they were both men that I was interested in. And then suddenly they went from soft and tender and wooey to violent and aggressive. And it just turned this whole pattern inside of me from feeling open and playful and trusting and arousing and sexy to feeling very, very guarded and very protective. And long story short, I went from being open, sensual to being kind of like I was hiding. I just let my mustache and underarm hair and my hair on my legs. And I just became this heavy, disconnected from my body woman. And I tuned into celibacy and just kind of shrouded my outer body so I could find something precious inside. And in that meditation process, I was meditating hours a day and sometimes it became erotic. There were times when I would actually feel my sexual energy bubbling up in this solo stillness. And that sort of turned me on in a way that was way beyond any physical friction sex. It was like I felt trickling energies that stimulated my clitoris, in a way my clit, but also I could feel it inside. It was rising inside like this nuance of energy that wasn't about stimulating in any way that I'd ever felt before. It was like a connection of my soul. I felt blessing my body.
So beautiful.
Yeah. Did this happen in the celibate?
Yeah. I was sitting in meditation. I had this instrument called a baragin. It's a tool that you use to support your arms when you do different positions and meditation. And I will admit it was pressing the stem of it
right on your
right between my legs, and it was pressing.
That's what we do in calling your wife. Get that clip pressurized. Love that.
I just discovered it just as I was doing meditation. I thought, well, this feels like a good spot.
Uh-huh. Yes, it's the pleasure spot.
Yeah. What happens there?
I love it.
Right. And I realized I'm not supposed to be celibate. There's something precious about sex that I'm here to learn and deliver. And so I left the celibate life. And I moved into a house of people who were doing meditation, but we weren't celibate. And so I had a lot more freedom. And somehow somebody had the book Tantra, the Yoga of Sex. And I picked it up and I devoured it. It was like my soul was so hungry for this knowledge. And it talked about so many things, about energy fields and seeing energy and vitality globules. But one of the things that struck me that kind of resonates with now is it talked about this thing that happens if you're both aroused and internally connected, but there's not a lot of movement. And if you stay in that place for a significant amount of time, something really juicy and alive that's deep inside. And I wanted to experience that, but I couldn't get a man to be slow and still long enough to experience it. Except once when I fell asleep with my partner. He was inside. We both fell into a deep, sweet sleep. And I woke up probably 20 minutes later with this enormous fire going on inside my pussy. And it was just raging. I'm like, are you feeling what I'm feeling? I'm asking him. And apparently he felt it too. And it was so powerful to feel it together. I wasn't prepared for it. It was almost too much.
Wow.
Well, ding, ding, ding. Let's just highlight that for the audience. To go slow enough for this thing to build. Stillness is so underrated. It's one of these profoundly, deeply pleasurable states that women in particular really need in their awakening process. Do not overlook slowing down.
Yeah, and trust that if you do go soft in that slowing down process, it's okay.
Yes.
That's part of your journey.
Part of it, yeah. Nothing bad or wrong is happening if you go soft. In fact, remember, there are some orgasms we can only have when you're soft.
Yeah, and
wow.
Yeah, and it will build up your sexual energy as well. So you know, naturally you will get hard again and you will get harder than the time before.
Right, because it's an energetic hardness that comes from feeling each other's feelings. Like when he was feeling me, feeling that intensity. It was really exciting each other. Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
I've experienced that.
We eliminate like anxiety from our experience, right? Like anxiety takes us out of the present moment. So when we kind of build that resilience muscle to being worried about being successful or being orgasmic or keeping an erection.
Right.
When we start to like blow through that illusion, then these bigger experiences in sex really happen. And then all the erections that you want are there and all the big monumental pleasurable experience start to unfold in your body because you stop worrying about it because you're learning how to stay in the present moment.
Right.
That's right.
Feel what's present. And I would even encourage women, if they're exploring their own cervix, to address it in that same yin kind of way.
Yeah, let's talk about the cervix. I'm so excited to have you talk on this, Mare, because I think it's such uncharted territory.
Totally. And a lot of research doesn't even recognize it or that women have much sensitivity there. And I think the reason that we don't have much sensitivity there is that either it's been prodded and poked in the doctor's office and grabbed little snips of, which do hurt.
Yeah,
I must say, we have feelings there. But and so those are the memories that we have in that area. And another way that we feel sometimes numbed out is if a man masturbates on you, in other words, if he's pounding hard on his own rhythm without tuning into the woman, it can be very intense, sometimes painful, and sometimes just that instinct of contracting and pulling inward to protect from being pounded on year after year after year. You know, that was the only kind of sex I knew for many years. And I wondered why I wasn't orgasmic with intercourse.
Yeah, when we blame ourselves like there's something wrong with us, when we're just retreating within and we endure.
Yeah, so that we don't have to have cervical pounding and pain.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons why sex is painful for women. This is a huge one of them.
Yeah.
The cervix that's not warmed up enough. We talked about the round ligaments, actually swaths of muscle that lift up the whole uterus so that cervix lifts up. So there is room for the penis, and that requires turn on.
Yeah.
Right.
Which takes time. Yeah.
Right. It's all so movable and interactive, the way that the vagina itself elongates when we're excited. But when the orgasm happens, especially when a man ejaculates, sometimes the cervix drops down to drink up that sperm, which is a really interesting thing.
It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a hummingbird.
Drinking the nectar.
Mm-hmm.
And the cervix is like that. I mean, I only discovered and touched mine for the first time with my finger, not with a toy, but just with my finger when I was feeling around and just looking for it. And it was almost like a little kitty cat. It felt like a very conscious part of me that came down and went to like hit my finger.
That's so sweet.
Wow, that was really a sweet image.
It was so beautiful.
It's like, I'll come to you now that you're there. I'll
now that you're
hi. Yeah, I'll make my own move. It's very true. I do a lot of pelvic floor work with women, and I always really feel like I'm working with tissues of an infant because I've done a lot of cranial with babies too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something so sweet about the tissue of the cervix and inside and the vulva. It's very malleable and soft and gentle, like a kitten, like a baby, you know, it's very sweet.
Yeah, and very responsive and sensitive. The clitoris is used to, you know, because it's on the outside and it's more analogous to a male phallus kind of structure, even though we have more nerves there, twice as many. But it's still kind of an outer organ that has a different quality to it. Sometimes it likes intensity. Other times it likes it really delicate. And so I don't want to categorize it in just one way. But what I found about the cervix that's very different is that the more relaxed I am, the more I feel. And the less goal there is, the less anything, which is why I've been so enjoying discovering it on my own. But I want to share my first cervical orgasm because at the time I didn't know what it was, but I was sharing with a partner. I don't easily have orgasms during intercourse, and I really want to, and I really want to work on this. And he was totally willing to help me. And we played and we did many things. What I remember most was as he entered me, it was really still and very present. He looked into my eyes and he said, relax. Okay. I didn't quite know how to relax because I'm used to being, you know, all ambitious and excited and active. And so I told myself, I think I know what that means, relax. And he said, now relax even more. And he entered in about an inch. I'm starting to get really excited and I started to move and he goes, no, just relax and receive me. And he slowly entered and I felt every part of my vagina, every inch of me. And when he hit my cervix, not hit, when he met my cervix, it was like we melted.
Wow.
And I felt and I felt these light force like feelings like tingling up through my body, like waves of sensation that were just moving throughout me. And he was hardly moving. He was just going like this and kind of sigh, but really slow. And I just kept feeling myself opening and expanding and more feeling like I was, you know, like I was really starving for this experience, that I knew that this was what I was yearning for. And it lasted for a long time. I wanted it to never end, just ever. And we took a break and I was like, can we do some more?
Go back there. Let's go back there. Nothing else matters.
I went that place. Forever.
It is a sweet place.
If you think about like, you know, the average woman who's watching this, who maybe hasn't had these subtle experiences yet, but they have had an orgasm before. And maybe they have a hunch that it's more clitoral. Maybe they're not sure if they've had a vaginal, or, you know, it's like all these different types of orgasms. They haven't quite figured out what they all are or what they are to her.
Right. G-spot.
Or to them, if they don't identify with the gender as woman, but they have assigned female genitals. What is the difference between what most women have experienced and this experience? Can you articulate that?
I've been researching what other people say about it to try to get words for it.
Yeah.
because for me, it's not nebulous, but like a trance. Like I enter into a place that's sort of timeless. And I find myself, if I'm using a wand, it's just, I'm moving really slowly, just kind of finding wherever the sensations are and then melting there and letting my body meet the wand rather than doing any pumping, thrusting or anything. And I'm also using a mudra on my fingers to activate the connection of my clitoris to my yoni.
What's a mudra for those who don't know?
So for me, it's just a position of the hands that generates energy. And one that I like to use is sometimes I'll capture my clitoris like right there between my fingers.
Okay.
Just and give it a little hug.
Or so that it's pronounced and my fingers are just holding the clit. I mean, the whole vulvar region, and the clit is just, the shaft is right there. And so sometimes that doesn't even require much movement. It's just when the touch occurs and the energy starts to flow, it's probably like acupuncture. When the energy flows, this current awakens inside the body. And then I feel healing starts to happen. So the desire to move actively and thrust is kind of replaced by this curiosity of what would happen if I didn't do a lot of movement, but if I just melted and softened and opened to this place. And what I find is that it draws me in like this conversation between my soul and my body. And my memories, some old memories sometimes will come up, but with such clarity that I can just have compassion for myself. And sometimes emotions come up and anger can come up, but it comes up in just a gentle, I accept myself. I feel that. I know that. I love myself. And then as I do that, it's like I enter into this deeper chamber of myself. And an awareness of arousal and pleasure comes forth from that. Again, it's like it's blessing me. It's just moving through me with these sensations that feel like a bath, like a warm, gentle, soft, kind of yielding bath. And sometimes the pleasure is really strong. Sometimes it'll all of a sudden build, but other times it's very subtle. So rather than looking for the intensity, the way to access it is to looking for the subtlety and allowing the subtlety to build, giving yourself permission to expand it with your consciousness, with your mind, rather than with friction and movement.
Okay. It's like a yin-gasm, sounds
it's
like.
Very yin. In fact, yintimate.
Yintimate. Love that.
It's an intimate state. And
we're going to be borrowing that from you, Mare.
Yeah, that's
other choice words. We'll give you credit.
Okay, I might write a book on that title.
Yes, you should.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And when you're with partner, I mean, it's so healing the way you're describing it, doing it on your own. Every vulva owner has access to that level of healing and connecting soul to sexuality, connecting soul to physicality and body. And then when you're with a partner, there's this other level because there's this yang energy coming in, still coming in this yin way, in this yin fashion, but there's a different polarity for the oneness to transpire through.
I would say if the man comes in with yang energy and he's not present to the yin, then the whole experience can be very yang and miss a lot of that, which is I think why a lot of women, again, don't have orgasms with intercourse like I didn't. I was both experiencing pain and numbness when he'd do his thing. And I just felt like I had to endure it, like we were saying earlier.
Right.
When a man can meet a woman, I remember one time I was on top with a partner and he was being more passive, maybe because we had just had a fight and it was makeup sex and it wasn't like this passionate makeup sex. It was like he was still a little wounded and I was trying to love him up, you know. So I was on top and sitting over him and I started just doing these subtle little kind of spirals and figure eights. And I started feeling an enormous sensation. And I was like, are you feeling that too? And when it addressed that he could feel it, it intensified for me. I could feel it even more. And we danced like that for the longest time. And very quickly, the anger of the fight that we had just dissipated into this enchantment of feeling a sensation of, it wasn't again that pounding, but it was just like, I'm almost going to describe it like this, like bubbling, like effervescence. And sometimes the bubbles can rise and we can bring it all the way into our brain. In fact, the nerves that address the cervix The main one being the vagus nerve goes directly from the cervix through all of our chakras, the belly, through the heart, and into our throat. And very much when we open our throat, this is another magical piece that I've learned, is that I like to actually tone when I'm feeling this way, which is more like just long, deep exhalations of sound, like, oh. Then the energy starts to grow and build because my throat, especially when there's cervical stimulation occurring simultaneously, they start to resonate at the same frequency. And then I see psychedelics and I see lights and colors and geometry and this pattern that opens inside me that I travel into. It's like this whole toroidal field that's in our body that rises up through our spine and up to the top of our head and beyond. That's happened a few times. It's rare. It's precious. I want to access that more and more because it's like, wow, it's so desirable.
It sounds really mystical
Mm-hmm.
and cosmic.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm pretty sure that because that vagus nerve is connecting our brain and our crown with our genitals, and particularly the cervix, that's what's helping to increase that cervical connection. Like I took a course in Cervix Awakening, and one of the things that was recommended by Olivia Bryant, you may have heard of her, she wrote and is doing this project called Self-Cervix, and it's really for women to serve and explore their own cervix.
Beautiful.
And one of the things that she talked about was feeling and focusing, visualizing the energy rising up your spine and going into your crown, and seeing this whole pattern as it is actually occurring, even if we don't physically see it, imagining it because it is occurring. That energy, when we visualize it, can, especially when we're using our throat, it's bringing it all the way up into our throat. And then, of course, the skull and all the bones in our head are vibrating. So the sound will activate and pull the energy up through our bodies. It's helpful for men to not ejaculate when they use sound, but for women, when we use sound, especially when we intend it to rise up through the field, it opens up this entire circuitry of light and energy. And that's where the magic really, really starts to happen, where visuals can happen. Or a lot of times for me, I get a lot of downloads, a lot of information at that time, things that I'm here to give and my gifts and teachings that I want to share.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very, very exciting to have an occupation that's all about exploring pleasure.
Yeah, it opens up your creativity channel.
Definitely. It makes work a lot of fun.
Oh, for sure. So I have a question about, in the Taoist tradition, they call what you're talking about superior orgasms. So you can have orgasms in the pineal gland and get that psychedelic flashing light. You could have an orgasm in your thyroid gland, especially if there's a disorder there, or in your thymus, or different glands, different organs. Your heart, exactly. You can have an orgasm in your womb. And according to the Tao, they say the womb-gasm is the highest of the superior orgasms for a woman. So I'm just curious if the cervical orgasm, is there a distinction between that and the womb-gasm?
Wow. Well, let's think about that. I've not heard the term womb-gasm, but I can certainly imagine it and see how, because the cervix and the womb are attached, they're connected.
Right. Yeah.
It's naturally
the doorway.
Yeah. Wow. I love
I'm
the
going to complicate this a little bit. What about women who don't have a cervix?
In the Tao, they say even if you've had an organ removed, the energy of it is still there. So you can still have an orgasm to your pancreas if you've had it removed, or your womb if it's been removed.
So just so our audience knows, it's irrelevant whether or not you still have the physical organs. You still have the energy of the organs.
Right.
Therefore, you can still have cervical orgasms and possibly this womb orgasm.
I've read about that. In fact, that was part of the research. I wanted to explore that with women who are in this and who've had hysterectomies. And some are unwilling to explore it because they say, oh, it doesn't exist. So I will tell them what Dr. Willow said it does.
Yeah.
The energy of it's still there.
Yeah, right.
Go to maresimone.com and be a part of the research.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing like a phantom limb. You know, you have a limb removed and the energy, you still feel like it's there. So.
I was going to say that. Some people feel itching in that area. The energy is still there. So yeah, it's all about your mind, how we open up. And this is the other really, really cool thing that I'm feeling right now. So important when the world is feeling so chaotic and so many uncertainties coming down on us all at once, to know that we don't only exist in this third dimension. that we can tap into higher dimensions of our being that exist same time and place, but on a higher frequency. And to me, cervical orgasms in sex and pleasure and orgasms in general help take us to these heightened states of awareness that help alleviate tension and stress and all the worries and the anxieties so that we can come back into our world more fulfilled and less addicted and listening to the news all the time and watching all the things that are going on and getting more and more caught up in that whirlwind. We have a place that we can go to that's like a sanctuary. And I think one thing I want to say and make sure that this comes across is I know people who think they've had a lot of great sex, and this goes back to your question earlier, people who have had good sex, but maybe they're bored after 50 years of being married or whatever time frame that is. When they experience this deeper sensation, it's like they also access their higher dimensions. Like when I'm with a partner who is astounded and I get that they're feeling what I'm feeling and they're like, wow, what is this? I feel like you've hypnotized me. You've put me in a trance. And I want to say that it's by slowing down that you can access that trance, that we can feel that place together and create a new world inside of our own bubble, our life, love bubble together. And then have that emanate out into the world and be the field that you move and dance and work and speak through, which creates like that, the stronger this bubble becomes, this love field that we emanate, the less we're affected. And I think the stronger our immune systems become. And,
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, the less fear we live in and
right.
the more harmony we have between each other and more compassion and forgiveness and patience.
Right.
All of our like saintly qualities we've got greater access to grace. We've got greater access to love. We've got greater access to forgiveness. We've got greater access to being in harmony with nature and each other. And I think our priorities start to realign to what's actually important, and it's really this experience of love. Yeah. We come with all this other stuff to encounter, like fear and shame and guilt and that stuff. But what we're meant to do here is to remember that what we really are is love. Mm-hmm. And I think for a lot of people, we're disconnected to a large degree between our heart and our sex. And as you've been talking and describing your experience, Mare, what I am struck with is your body language.
Yeah. So the way you're moving.
I would love for our audience to start
the
interview from the beginning and really watch, because Mare's not just teaching us with her words. She's got a beautiful use of language, but she's also teaching us with her body. And if you look at her body language, she's doing a lot of these hand movements. You can tell that when she's talking about this uterine orgasm or the cervical orgasm, her heart's connected to her body. Her heart's totally integrated to her yoni, to her pussy, to her vagina, to her vulva. It's an integrated vehicle. And so what I'm noticing is like, it makes sense that you're feeling these subtle tingles, effervescence, a subtlety, this intimate experience throughout your whole body. I feel softer just being in your presence. Like, there's this thing called mirror neurons. So as I'm watching Mare, I'm like, okay, body, where she goes.
Open it up. Open it up.
Do stuff that we can't do with our minds.
I love that.
It's actually a body teaching.
Right.
Yeah, I'm feeling present to that. I just wanted to name it.
I love that you said that, Leah, because I've been noticing that too the whole time. And then one more thing, I'm starting to get me rolling into it.
See, this is what it's like to be in the feminine. That's right. That's right.
Share that. I'm actually sitting on something that stimulates my clit.
Oh, no, that's the best way to do an interview. I love it. One more thing I want to add to that is the Jing Qi, the sexual energy, Jing energy in the Tao, we call it. It comes out through the eyes, and you can see that in Mare's eyes. You can really see that in the openness, the shine, and the shimmer in her eyes. And when you're moving around the world, you can look for that in people. Like, is their Jing Qi awakened? Are they clear? Are they open? Are they looking you in the eyes? Is this third eye and your physical eyes actually expanded and open to a higher consciousness state, which is what you keep bringing us home to? This is is a physical thing, but the physicality of it really brings you to this higher level of consciousness.
Yes.
You could not otherwise access.
Yes. And I want to also add to that as women mature, like I'm 67 and I'm past menopause. And yet, even though people say that, you know, after menopause, your sexual energy diminishes, your hormones, all this, I would say that for me, it's taken on a different quality because it's, you know, as I get closer to maybe my great escape from this world, I feel like I get closer and closer to the soul, and that my orgasms and my desire for isn't just about the same kind of physical urgency that I used to have when I was sexually, you know, horny in my teens and 20s and all, but it's now something much more like a self-love and magical process. And I was going to share something that I invite you all to do, because this is something that I've been exploring and experiencing as part of myself and arousing myself and preparing for self-pleasure, is to do a lot of body stretching and feeling my presence in every part of my body, especially my spine. And my spine is an area that I've been feeling some challenge in. So I want to put some love there. So as I'm doing these stretches, it feels as if I'm making love to myself. I'm making love to my spine. I'm just rubbing it into the base that I'm lying on, and I'm just feeling the places where pain and pleasure meet, right? And letting pain turn into pleasure, just allowing that melting to occur, because that's the same feeling that occurs on the inside when you're massaging the cervix. So when I can start by just doing that with my whole body, you know, this doesn't require even hands. It's just like moving and stretching and feeling, oh, there's a tight place. And
breathing through it,
moving into it,
sounding into it.
And then energy starts to move up through the spine, and the spine starts to tingle and become more and more turned on. And then the arousal of, you know, self-pleasure and direct genital stimulation is like ripe and ready in a whole different way.
Yeah.
How beautiful.
For a lot of women, direct contact is not the way to go. Indirect contact, it's like you work from the outside
in.
So it's sort of like being able to roll your shoulders and stretch out and move and arch.
Feel your tightness and transform it into energy. Get that energy moving.
Yeah. Then you're able to access more pleasure potential in those primary erogenous zones.
Right.
If you can kind of come in more slowly, feel the whole body before you go straight to the honey bits, you know?
And when you start your day out in this sort of amoebic stretching, rolling, just like let your consciousness rest, become that like one-celled organism, and you start your day out like that, the rest of your day is going to be so much more pleasurable. You're going to have so much more presence.
More gentle.
For everything you're doing, more gentle.
So much more presence and sensitivity to your surroundings and what other people are feeling and how to be interactive.
It's a great way to set yourself up for success. And it only takes 2 to 3 minutes. You could do longer, but
I have a more like technical question.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So first, like, can you just describe, because I think there's a lot of yoni owning bodies that haven't totally explored the inside of their vagina, feel a little queasy at the idea, don't really know where everything is and what it is, and it's a little confusing. Can you describe where the cervix is, what shape it is? What I heard you say is that you kind of go in and you find a spot and then you let yourself melt around it. Are there any other particular massage techniques, or are you touching behind it, in front of it? You know, could you give a little more direction?
So because it's sometimes numb initially, I would encourage, before a person even begins to look for it with their fingers or a toy, is to start by feeling it with your mind, by contracting your vaginal muscles, starting at the very opening, coming up to the middle, and then all the way up at the top where the cervix is. And then when you feel that top, tighten a little bit more and feel just above the top of the cervix, which then brings your attention to not just a physical place, but the energy. Because when you do that, it starts to quiver. It starts to like recognize that it's being called forth and in a way that's subtle rather than jabbing and poking and looking for it. It's like you're calling it in energetically.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you tune into the energetic of it, the more it wants to be touched, right? It's so sensitive and subtle that if you're just looking for a physical thing, an object, what you might notice is that it feels a little hard. It feels a little bit like the nose. That if you look at it through a speculum or the images that I've seen, it looks a lot like a donut. And the hole in the middle, depending on whether a woman has given birth or not, may be very small or larger. Some people talk about right at the very opening of the os as being an incredible sensual place. My uterus is tipped, and I've had 3 surgeries on my cervix. So I don't know how much of a cervix I have left. I'm pretty sure the nerves are still there. And for me, sometimes more than just the physical spot, I feel like it's more like an opening. Like what I'm looking for. So this again, if you've had hysterectomy or whatever, the opening still exists because it's an opening to the canal, the spinal canal, and the whole circuitry that leads up to the crown.
Yeah.
So when I think of it that way, and when I'm being penetrated by a partner, the more pleasure I can feel is by allowing that opening to just expand and open and expand and open. When I'm exploring it on myself, when I'm being more subtle and tuned in, I look for whatever is present there. And sometimes it's numb and I could wait for 30 minutes, just being still with it. I'm in no hurry. And then I start to feel something, or if I move around, I might feel a little tenderness or a little tightness or a little pain. And I might just stop right there until that pain softens. And then it starts to feel like pleasure. And it's like, oh, I didn't know I could feel pleasure there. I always felt pain. But if you wait a couple of minutes, it will transform. Yes.
Thanks for sharing that, Mare, about having had some surgeries. I'm imagining you're talking about LEAP procedures or...
I had cryotherapy, then they did some other laser treatment, and then they went in with a cold knife. I remember reading that on the description.
Yeah.
It didn't sound pleasant, but I insisted that they not remove. They wanted to give me a hysterectomy. Because I also had some fibroid tumors, and they said, well, just get rid of it.
Right. That's their way. That's their training. God bless.
That's how I make money. But I just did no. And I remember even saying, because I guess I'd read it somewhere, that I don't want to lose my womb because I've heard that you can have womb-gasms or cervical orgasms or something. I remember the doctor just said to me, you're crazy. That's not where orgasms come from.
Of course. Your story is such a testament to the healing and how you go into those places where you feel there's some pain. Let me breathe into it, soften around it. And then that pain turns into pleasure. I mean, from my mind and being up in women's JJs a lot, what I know is happening is scar tissue is melting. And there's this healing that's happening for the cells of your cervix, all that reverberates all the way up into your womb. And with that vagal,
that makes sense.
With that vagal nerve action, it's going through every chakra, every gland.
I love that you use that word, that reverberate, because sound has pitch and frequency, and it's used in all sorts of medical equipment for healing purposes. And so the throat chakra, meaning much of the vagus nerve, it comes into the heart. So for those of you who've ever had a crygasm, that's the vagus nerve. It's a very emotional type of activation. And vagus nerve comes into the throat here to go up to the brain. When you think of your throat and making sound, it's like a magnet for all the lower parts of your body, all the other chakra systems. So when you make the sound, when you make reverberations, la la la, ooh, ooh, any volatile do, hard or soft, and you start to think about pitch and frequency, like how can I connect what I'm feeling to a pitch and a frequency? That's how you carry the sensation throughout your body. That's what improves the neural pathways between the brain and the genitals, strengthening your ability to have full body pleasure, multiple orgasmic pleasure. You're enlivening your brain, and you're literally making yourself younger. And so, hallelujah that you advocated for yourself medically and saw the value in these body parts. And even if you had made the choice, because for some people the right choice is to remove some parts of their body, to know that all the energetics are right there and they profoundly respond to this reverberation. I love that you use that word. I keep on sensing this like sound bowl or like chimes or
ding,
like a ding.
Dong, there it goes. Up through your whole body.
Yeah. And then there's this mystical place you were describing, this place with all this geometrical thought forms. You know, why would we want to move ourselves into that kind of sexual experience versus what we've always known, which is friction-based, kind of animal primal? That's fun. That's yummy, but there's a transcendence. We want to invite people to it. You've done so well during this interview, Mare, is you've helped us reimagine, which is what this whole thing is about, is reimagining what is possible in our sexual world.
Well, I love that Charles Muir would say every chakra is an erogenous zone. And that resonated so well with me. And so when you ask, why would one want to expand and feel more than just the physical friction pleasure, is that if you can imagine taking an orgasm and bringing it up your belly and having it at the same time sparkle and glow and send healing energy into your belly and any part of your belly, your digestive system or anything that needs healing, and then bring it up into your heart, and without even attending to it, it just naturally will clear and remove patterns and wounds in the heart. And, you know, because it just makes you ecstatic and so joyful, right? And as you bring it up into your throat, it stimulates your creativity, your expression, your ability to just be more, to live more in your body. Because as it expands, it also gets stronger, right? It just gets more multifaceted, multidimensional. And I was going to say something. I'm feeling like my third eye and my crown and my psychic abilities are evolving and developing, which I really, really, really want at this time of existence in this planet. I want to have access to other dimensions easily, and to know that there's a zone where there's just this peaceful quality of existence. That's like a sanctuary. We can go there. And again, it's not about friction. Get off. How many orgasms and how many ejaculations or any of that. It's about how deeply can you feel and melt into this serene state.
I love it.
Bring that back.
I love it. It's like, it feels like healthy ego as compared to measuring or needing to like be impressive. It's a totally different space, right?
It's an authentic place.
Yeah,
it's like you're really listening to what your desires and what your bodies want. And I love so much what you're exemplifying for us, especially for women who are in their power years, past menopause. You know, it's a reclamation. It's a new union that you get to form with your sexuality. You get to create this new relationship with your own body as it is now. And I think that's so empowering and makes a huge difference for how you move through every other sector in your life.
And we need more role models. We need more women in their power at this stage in their life, willing to be visible, speak up, do this piece of work so that we know how to do it. Because many of us are left grasping, confused, uncertain, and then we just allow ourselves to become invisible in the culture. We feel left behind, unwanted, unloved, abandoned. Then all these cultural wounds, arise in the feminine, and I see it, and I don't have the answers yet. So preach.
We're healing. We're all healing, reclaiming our power, and the more we really live in this vitality space of being turned on as women, as men, that we just create this field that, is like awake in front of us and behind us, just this, field of light that is felt by the world. We need to tap into this place that's pure, this place that's creation, and just be filled up by it.
I imagine that there's like resistance, right? Like if I tune into the resistance I could feel around all of this, it's, I'm so busy. There's like, how much time do I have to devote to this? And then how do I prioritize that time?
Yeah.
Can you say anything about that as a roadblock?
I try different times of day.
Okay.
Sometimes first thing in the morning is the best because the world hasn't come upon my shoulders yet, and I'm still in the soft
Yeah, what did you call it? Jinchi.
Jing, J-I-N-G. Yeah, it's like Shakti, Jing Chi, sexual energy, all the same.
I always call that sparkle plenty.
Sparkle
it's like
plenty?
sparkle in your eyes really meets the sparkle in your smile. When those two are connected, you really feel someone's right there with you.
Yeah,
you're right.
Jing Chi, baby. And it's really stored up in the adrenal glands. So it's like everything you've been talking about, Mare, is really, it's a boost, it's a buildup. It's moving from adrenal fatigue and adrenal stress to adrenal fullness and adrenal health.
Nice, yes.
And that's why I was shocked. You said, I think 62. I was shocked. I was
7.
67. I was shocked. I'm so going to shock.
Me.
Beautiful example of having healthy adrenals and having healthy Jing Chi and knowing how to drop into the trance state, the yin field, really, really stay authentic and true. It's not about how many multiple orgasms or squirting or any of that, right? It's about this nourishment that you can give to yourself through sexual energy.
Right. And then to share it with a partner because they don't know until we can show them. Because their whole drive is all about producing, making sperm, making babies. And that's, their innate instinct as well as maybe the way that they masturbate. So that unless they're tuned into a yin partner, it's very hard for them to discover this on their own. I commend the men who have taught me, who've shown me. And I want to say one more thing about size because we're talking about this deep, deep place inside of a vagina that could be, if a man or a woman looks at a man and thinks, he's not going to make it, he's not big enough. There's something actually magical that happens when genitals resonate at the same frequency. And I know this because I was with a partner who had a very small, like maybe the size of a finger, lingam. And I was thinking, that's not going to do much for me. But we had such a resonant connection that when he penetrated me, it was, again, he went in really slow. This is something men should take note of. Take your time. Don't go in. Women don't like to be rammed. We like that feeling of melting and merging and melting and opening. And as soon as he melted into me, it was like my uterus right down and gave him that little cervix kiss. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those beautiful, beautiful, beautiful things. And we were both raving about how phenomenal it was. Because I think for him, as a man with a smaller penis, he wasn't expecting it to be that phenomenal for either of us. He wanted to marry me.
So much for describing it that way because I have had that experience so many times. I'm a big fan of small lingams and I like them big too, but I'm one of the small lingam girls. And that's the connection. I didn't have the language for it before. And I also believe that energetically, doesn't matter the size you are, if you can bring awareness to how much energy you can stream out that lingam, that cock, that penis, you can make it as big as you want. So this is why understanding and studying some of the energetic qualities, it's not all woo. You start to feel kind of yummy and juicy and woo-woo-y once you start seeing it and feeling it. You can't help it because it has this juiciness to it. And so when you start to really tap into that, you'll get it. You'll get it. It could be just a lovely place for us to end this interview is to just say, hey, cervical kisses, they're real thing,
Go play, go explore.
Yeah, go beyond these limiting thoughts when it comes to size. And when it comes to what you're capable of as we age. Pleasure is multidimensional and we're all just scratching the surface is what I am coming to see.
I
Yeah.
have one closing statement I'd like to
Ooh.
make around that is that
Thank you.
we've been talking about this wonderful, beautiful thing or experience, and sometimes it can interfere. The thoughts about what it should be can interfere with the subtlety and maybe the nuances of sometimes releasing emotions and anxieties, like I was sharing before, the stuff that's like trapping us from feeling. So if you're not feeling, look for the subtlety, not more friction, and drop deeper down into your body. Just imagine just feeling like you're relaxing all the way down to the cervix and all the way down to the gates and the opening of your yoni. More relaxation will create more sensation.
Yes, so true. You can feel more when you're in a parasympathetic state. It's just
Right,
the truth.
parasympathetic state.
Ding, ding, dings.
Beautiful. I know. We're doing it right over here.
Fun, yummy women.
Yeah.
Mare, you have a really beautiful gift that you're offering our audience. Do you want to tell us about that?
I have a few things that I'm doing. One is I have right now the Pillars to Pleasure, which is a checklist that women can use to help them remember how to tap into pleasure and the things that we sometimes forget. So it's a little me whispering in your ear that can remind you to do the things that we talked about today. And I'm also putting together a class, and it's going to be a pilot class. I want to teach women what I'm learning, and I want to explore it and expand it in ways that are my own unique style. I honor what I learned from Olivia, and yet I know that there are other aspects and facets that are me. So I'm putting together this course. And if you join my list, you'll actually get all the information so that you can join the class if that's of interest to you.
Perfect. And is that the how to find and care for your ozone?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I love it.
Yeah. To me, it's actually the Om zone.
Love that.
I do tone a lot when I'm in that place. So the Om is like a way of opening that frequency, but it also stands for orgasmic magic.
Yes, orgasmic magical. You'll see Leah and I there for sure.
Yeah. Great. Great.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Love you.
Yeah, such a pleasure.
Love, 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 love.
Love to see you all. Blessings. Bye-bye.